Here comes Devereaux.
Mete mano!
Oh, excuse me. I couldn't help but notice that you two groups of people are about to start killing each other, and I was wondering if you could please just wait on that until we could get off the train.
Sit down, bitch.
Yeah, bitch, sit down.
Are you gonna let him get away with that?
Wait a minute.
I was kidding.
That was really rude. Take it back. Apologize.
Let's stay out of this.
He called you a bitch.
Brad, shut up!
Hey, listen to the bitch, Brad.
Watch your mouth. You big city scum sucker.
You just can't keep your foot out your mouth, can you, boy? Let me help. Don't fuck with the lords of hell.
Don't fuck with the babysitter.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast, episode 221, Adventures in Babysitting. And with me today, as always, is Sam Stepanenko.
I wouldn't hire any of these girls, just for the record. If I had kids.
Passing the plague on to me, Trish Conklin.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. I didn't even, and when I was sick, I didn't even hug you because I didn't want to get you sick, and you got sick anyway.
To be fair, for continuity's sake, I am blaming Trish, but there was almost 3 weeks between those recordings.
Oh, okay.
So I blame probably everybody who came into my shop on Boxing Day.
Oh, yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, no, I've been in the midst of the plague machine, and yeah, so unfortunately my New Year's Eve was just this fountain of mucus. So it's an interesting way to bring in the new year, but, you know, might as well get the sickness out of the way right away.
Yeah, why not do that? Like, just, end the year that way and be like, the next year's when it's all going to be different.
That's right. I still count that as the offshoot of 2019.
Yes.
Even though it's moving into 2020. But it started in 2019.
Exactly.
So I get to blame 2019.
You can't. You're only getting healthier in 2020.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And guess
Go
what?
with that.
Hey, you know what? Like, I feel really accomplished now. I saw this on social media, and I was born in the 70s, so I've lived through 6 decades, 2 centuries, and 2 millennia. And I'm not 50 yet.
Wow.
So, and I didn't even have to do anything. Like, what did you guys do yesterday?
7 decades. Fuck you.
Oh, right.
Okay,
Sam
you've
had
got
a
us
birthday.
Well, no, I was born at the end of a decade.
Yeah, you get your birthday pick next week.
Yes.
And traditionally, Sam doesn't make it easy on me.
No.
Neither
do I.
And his suggestions that came in yesterday, I'm like, fuck, what is with him?
I try to go interesting.
Yes, he does. And I appreciate that.
This one's going to be a difficult one to find, but I think I tracked it down. So
yay.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen it in a long time. I just remember loving it.
Ooh.
So much.
It's weird and a little trippy.
And foreign.
And it is foreign.
Yes. And that was one of the other things I wanted to try was get into something.
Italiano.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I love me some foreign films. I've been dipping my toe in there.
Yeah. It's been a while since we did something from another country, so.
But this one we're going to stay firmly in the United States, and apparently we are still well owned by the mouse at this point. We keep unintentionally.
I'm changing our logo, by the way.
We should do an alternate logo for every time we do a Disney movie.
Exactly.
Yes, something with the
Invasion
House
of the
Mouse.
Rodent.
Yes.
Now that you've seen this movie, because I don't think a lot of people realize this got remade as a Disney Channel movie, which is fun. I've been wanting to do this one for a little while since that one was made because, people of our generation, we all know Adventures of Babysitting, this fun family film, but most people don't know it was remade unless you had the Disney Channel, and then your kids might, but they probably don't know about the original. And now you can catch both of them on Disney+.
There you go. Edited for content.
Exactly.
Or for language, sorry. Edited for language.
But now that you've seen both of these, and I have had this theory for a while, I've mentioned it on the show numerous times, do you believe in the Disney cloning vats now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know which
Oh,
one
come
you're-
on. That chick looked like Hilary Duff.
Hilary Duff. Oh, yes, the main chick.
Or Miley Cyrus, or...
Yeah.
She did look familiar, yes.
Yeah, or Hayden Panettiere. Like, there's so many of them that...
Oh, see, yeah, Hayden Panettiere.
Yeah.
Dead ringer.
Yes.
Yeah, so like,
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then the other...
Even the other one.
She looked like Selena Gomez and Victoria Justice, and I have to give you that, Jay. There's definitely something happening.
Even the kids had that Disney, we're going to be beautiful people quality to them, like, and the genetics always break down in their mid-20s to 30s, and then they just become freaks. Although it looks so far it looks like
Not
everything's
always.
going okay for Sofia Carson. So she's 27 now.
Yeah, I mean, Selena Gomez still looks good.
Well, no, I'm not. Even the ones that are hot street trash at this point, the looks haven't completely broken down. I'm just talking about they become messes of human beings. It's like we've escaped the Disney trap, and now we have to indulge in every narcotic and sin on the planet. And
But I don't think that's a cloning problem. I think that's a being in the house of mouse problem.
That's being a child star problem,
I like
too,
to believe that the genetics are starting to break down from the cloning vats, because don't ruin my science fiction.
I'm going to ruin it a bit because you have to. It can't all be genetics.
Environment.
I'm going to say cloning is not a perfected thing, but Disney's getting there.
They're getting there because they need to bring back Walt.
They're testing it out on the children.
Yes.
They are.
They're like chefs, like the kid in the remake. It's like, I need the perfect ingredients. I need the perfect ingredients.
That was a wild choice, and I loved it.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
I think in somebody's like, we really loved Ratatouille when we made it. We need a kid that is like the rat.
Oh my! And think about that rat, and think about that kid's face, and you tell me that isn't the human version.
Yeah, no, that was the first thing I thought was like, okay, that's Ratatouille. They're taking just as much as they were trying to pluck from the original film, they were plucking from other Disney too.
Oh, for sure. There's lots of that happening in there.
Oh,
Exactly. There was a ton of Home Alone in this.
Yes, I was thinking as I was watching, I'm like,
well, even the original, when I thought about it, I'm like, man, was this just a few years too early?
Yep.
You know, like, and when Home Alone really took off, and there's a joke that starts here because Christopher Columbus directed the first two Home Alones, and there's the car backing into the lawn jockey, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that happens in the Home Alone movies too, is this running gag
that's
between
actually
Chris-
John Hughes, because that happens in 16 Candles.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Maybe
Does it
started with
happen in
John
Uncle
Hughes.
Buck? I think it
Well,
might.
John
Uncle
Hughes,
Buck, yeah.
John Hughes wrote Uncle Buck and Home Alone.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with this movie, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of crossover
What's
with that
up
joke.
with him and lawn jockeys?
Well, I think that it's because...
I think he hates them.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear he hates them.
yeah,
And he's indifferent to gnomes, apparently.
Yeah, they were a thing in when he was growing up. They were a thing in sort of well-to-do households, particularly in Chicago where he grew up. Right, so I can see how there's a certain resentment there, especially if you weren't snotty class in Chicago, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with those extravagant houses in
Yes.
all of those movies.
Yes, you wonder how some of these people afford these houses.
Yeah. But then in all of these movies, the parents are away at some sort of gala. So that tells us something.
Yeah, well, parents are doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, at one point they said it's Dad's building in the original.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I'm not sure it was his building, but that's the building he worked
They
in.
kept saying
Yeah.
it was Dad's building,
Yeah.
but, you know, I
As
was
a
like that
kid,
as
you
a
think
kid
of it
too.
that way.
You know, okay, that's where Mom works. That's Mom's building.
Yeah.
It was my parent, or at least one of my parents, used to work downtown as well, and I did the same thing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, you kind of take ownership. This is where my mom resides during
Yes.
the day, you know.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever babysit when you were kids?
Yeah.
Teenagers?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any horror stories? Because I never did that.
No, babysitting's fucking boring. It is really, really boring, mostly.
It depends. You have to have the right kids. I remember there was two neighbor kids that I used to babysit for, and they were pretty awesome. The Floor is Lava is just a classic.
Yes.
And it's so much fun to do. Even, you know what? And as a babysitter, there's some stuff that you have an excuse to do again when you're a little older that you still enjoy. And The Floor is Lava is one of them.
Yeah, I had some pretty cool babysitters, I must admit. There's one kid, lived across the street, but I only had him a couple of times as a child. He did these magic tricks, which I thought was awesome.
That is pretty awesome for a babysitter to have that kind of skill set.
But usually it was like one of my cousins, and they were great as well. So.
Yeah, I actually did it for a living for a little while.
Nice.
Yeah, I was actually a child care worker.
Cool.
For 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, no horror stories.
No horror stories. They're great kids.
Yeah.
They were my niece and nephew, mind you, but not my niece and nephew, cousins. They were
Took
cousins.
them into
That's
a
right.
car that was being boosted.
Yeah, no.
No.
No. I saved that for when they weren't around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it was always, the thing was, like, when the parents went out and the babysitter came, that was always, I know that babysitter had rules, but that was always the point where, like, it's a night out for the kids too, kind of, because that was, like, when you got the mini pizzas and then when you got, like, snacks and you watched movies. It was your night out, essentially, but in.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember looking forward to having babysitters come in, and because you used to get to do things that you wouldn't normally get to do if your parents were around.
Yeah.
Right?
Your parents were bored of you. The babysitter wasn't.
No.
Well, they'd play games your parents wouldn't. Like, my folks never really would play games that weren't, like, any card game, right?
Yep.
Crib or gin or... like, I don't understand any of this. I don't want to play it. I don't like playing them.
Or board games. My parents weren't big board game people.
No, mine weren't either. But,
No, not really.
Yeah.
But I'm learning that with my nieces and nephews that, like, they don't have a lot of games at their place. So when I went over there for New Year's Day, I brought some games over, and
Nice.
they were pretty happy. So,
Yay. Yeah.
but they're teenagers, so I don't have to worry about babysitting them.
No.
No. Although there's one thing in this movie where, like, the two boys are like 15, and I'm like, I don't think they need a babysitter.
That kind of baffled me as well, because they were definitely old enough to be taking care of their younger siblings.
Well, that was
But
part
they're
of
also irresponsible. That was the whole point.
That was it as well. But if you're paying attention to the beginning of the movie, he was not going to be there.
Yes.
He was going over to his friends for a sleepover. He stayed on
Yeah.
purpose because he had a crush on Chris.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he didn't need the babysitter. He
True.
stayed because he wanted to be near the babysitter.
Yes. Yeah. And they did a good job of sort of filling that in.
Yeah.
And in the
and Daryl just attached himself.
yeah. And then in the remake, they explained it as well as they established that he's irresponsible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And he's not capable of taking care of the kids.
And mind you, as a little sister, having the older brother be in charge, I'd be sitting there trying to barter to have somebody else in charge. I don't want him looking after me.
He won't.
Not just won't, he'll sit on me or do something.
I mean, they do a good job in both movies to explaining it away as to why the older brother is not in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and him being grounded, definitely not in charge.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we haven't done a lot of setup here, but I wanted to get a little preamble in because everybody's had babysitters. Everybody's a good hunk of us have done it in our lives and
been babysat.
And I don't think any of us have ever had this experience.
No, my experience is the movie, and it was one of those childhood favorites, I guess. Like as I got older, I kind of moved away from it, forgot about it, but everybody remembers it, and I think it's a good movie to kind of start the new year with as far as our comparisons go.
I'm actually surprised we don't own it because Val loves it. She watches it every few months, actually.
I mean, there's stuff I'd forgotten because by the time I'd kind of left this in the past, there were actors that came out of this and became bigger names that I'm like, I had no idea they were in this movie despite having watched it because, you know, if they only got that one scene, you don't think about who that is, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and there's one scene where he's nowhere near as good as he is now.
Yeah. So we'll get there. I'm going to run the trailer for the original Adventures of Babysitting from 1987, and we'll start diving into this.
Meet Chris Parker. Getting ready for the greatest night of her life.
Hi.
I gotta cancel. Now she's stuck babysitting the Anderson kids. Sarah,
Mom got Chris to babysit for me.
Chris?
her brother Brad,
Oh, my.
his best friend Daryl,
Who is this kid?
Stray dog.
Take good care of my baby. I'll guard her with my life.
what could possibly go wrong.
Chris, I'm in trouble. Hang up and sit down. I'll be there in half an hour.
This is the night when things go from bad
My mom's car!
to worse.
Big city. Scum sucker.
Too ridiculous.
Wanna go to bed?
Hey, I like that shit.
You should try babysitting.
And this is only the beginning.
The ferret is dead.
Chris can handle it.
Sarah's probably hanging from the rafters by now. Sarah, hold on!
I'm still in control here.
You could say they were having a bad night
Any problems?
No, not really.
if they weren't having such a good time. Adventures in Babysitting.
Think your parents will ever ask me to babysit again?
If they do, I'd ask them for $1 more an hour.
All right, that was The Adventures of Babysitting from 1987, written by David Simpkins, who wrote for lots of cool stuff. Currently, he's writing the Netflix Woo Assassins show. Writing for that. He wrote for Charmed, Roswell, Warehouse 13, and one of my cult favorite TV shows, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
Yes.
It's funny because Warehouse 13 and Woo Assassins have come up conversations I've had in the last 2 days. After I had read this, it's like, why are these coming up in conversation now?
That's so strange.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah, you were mentioning you were watching Woo Assassins when I texted you last night. Directed by Chris Columbus. This is his actually first feature film.
Ooh.
He graduated in film school and stuff like that, and I think he still wasn't sure about his trajectory. Funny, because like the Marvel character Thor was in this movie fairly prominently, and he thought about maybe being a comic book artist at one point.
Wow.
So he must be a fairly decent artist, but being a comic book artist is a pretty solitary life, so this movie kind of gave him the confidence to keep going.
Nice. As it
Not
should.
Not a bad way to start your career.
No, it's pretty solid.
It's
Yeah.
a great debut. Like there's a reason people watch this movie a lot.
Well, and I think that's why he started his career doing family films for quite a while. And of course, Christopher Columbus would go on to do Mrs. Doubtfire and Harry Potter and the Percy Jackson film. He's still kind of stuck with a lot of young adult stuff, though.
Yeah, he seems to have found his niche.
Well, when you talk like about this and like also the Harry Potter films, like he sort of has a knack on working with, I think, kids. Like a lot of directors sometimes struggle with it, but he seems to do okay.
I think sometimes he gets a little flack, but those first couple Harry Potters, like I really like how they look. They're very
Absolutely.
polished. That was the one thing I appreciated about that series is they allowed the directors to bring their own flavor to those films, which I thought was interesting considering how sometimes drastic the flavor changes would be. I think his first two are the ones I kind of appreciate the most because I think they were the most audience-friendly ones. And
Yeah.
if it had been one of the later directors who came in first, I don't know if those movies would have been near as successful as they are now.
No, and I mean,
I think I'd have to agree with you on that.
yeah, because I mean, when I first saw them, like I didn't read any of the books, but I was drawn in. Like he got like that magical feeling about the whole place. Like when you in the first Harry Potter, where there's like these candles just floating around, that's brilliant. Every kid thinks like that would be awesome.
There's lots to look at in that movie, and
The talking paintings.
yeah, it feels magical. And as much as I hate the touch of death ending of the original film, I mean it's in the book, so whatever. I got over it because the rest of it is just so magical. Yeah. So this movie stars Elisabeth Shue as Chris the babysitter. And when I was doing my research, it seems like every female in Hollywood was up for this role. And finally won by her. You can see her currently in The Boys over on Amazon Prime Video.
Playing a very big departure from her normal character.
Oh, yeah. When I first saw that, I'm like, ooh, and it's because of this and Back to the Future 2 and 3 that's like, The Boys is like, whoa, don't be talking like that, Parker.
Yeah.
She's Parker in both those movies, her last name.
Yeah.
But Jesus. So
You gotta expand.
It's upsetting. I'm like, oh, I see what age has done to you.
I think she just got tougher. Like
But,
in
well,
one of our previous movies,
The boys,
she's gotten tougher.
she's babysitting a bunch of pretentious superheroes. So
Yeah. So I guess
And she's a badass.
the
She is a bit
babysitting
of a
just
badass.
changes.
yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God! This is the beginning. This is the prequel.
This is the prequel. I like to think this is the prequel to The Boys. We have talked about her before in episode 148.
Piranha?
Piranha. Yes. Thank you. Maya Bruton.
Oh, wait, you missed one. She was in Death Wish.
Was she?
Yes, she played.
All right.
Yeah, and that was episode 185.
There we go. Maya Bruton was Sarah. She was also in the original Back to the Future, which is another Back to the Future connection that happened all over the place in here. Keith Coogan was Brad, who you can currently see in Jane Silent Bob Reboot.
Nice.
Currently in theaters. Anthony Rapp was Daryl. He's on Star Trek Discovery right now. Calvin Levels plays Joe Gipp. He was the booster, the guy boosting the cars.
I loved him.
Yeah, I did too, and I really liked him, and I didn't think we'd ever talked about him before, but he was in a movie we talked about before, and it was Sam's very first regular appearance on the show.
Yes, it was
episode 30.
Point of No Return, La Femme Nikita.
That's right. And of course, Dawson, this was the Thor character,
Yes.
the one that went on to much bigger things, and is probably the biggest name in this movie, despite having one of the smallest roles. Vincent D'Onofrio, and we've talked about him a couple of times. The first time was in episode 119.
Magnificent Seven?
No.
Oh.
No, then we talked about that was episode 105 though.
Strange Days.
Oh, Strange
was in
Days.
Strange Days, yeah.
Yes, he
Yeah.
was in Strange Days.
I must have missed Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, he's the big...
It's getting to a point where I can't catch them all anymore.
Ditto, yeah.
Well, I remembered it because in this movie, he's a very different visually person, because like in Magnificent Seven, he's the big guy who talks like this.
That's right, he was, yeah. And he was also in, of course, 185 Death Wish. Penelope Ann Miller was Brenda. The whole reason everybody had to go into Chicago in the first place, because she ran away from home and didn't make it past the bus station.
See, and that was my one beef about this movie, is there was no setup for her having decided to run away from home. I didn't find...
Wrong.
It was
she
very
said right
visible.
at the beginning.
Her stepmother, she hates her.
Yeah,
she can't go home.
She was talking with Chris about that, and we should just leave home.
That's right. It kind of
happens really fast.
It happens really fast.
They really gloss over it quite quickly before
Yeah.
the babysitting happens.
Yeah. I think one scene of her at home,
Yep.
and maybe the fight or whatever that instigates her leaving home might have been important to put
To
in
establish
that,
it
to
and make
establish a little bit more, because you do forget about it.
Yeah,
but
it's
it is
not
in
very
there.
much depth there.
Yeah, and she was in The Shadow from the 90s, and a little movie that won an Oscar, The Artist.
Oh, she was in The Artist?
I was truly surprised we hadn't spoken about her before, because
too.
she's got a pretty decent body of work, and she's a very talented actress.
Yeah. George Newbern was Dan, and he was in Father of the Brides 1 and 2.
Oh, yes.
John Ford Noonan was Pruitt. Bradley Whitford. Holy shit, that was another guy that it's like you don't recognize him because he's so young in this movie. Bradley Whitford was the boyfriend to Mike, and he was in Cabin in the Woods and Get Out. Pretty much anybody who's seen him has fallen in love with him with his white hair now.
Oh, yeah.
But
he was in The West Wing
Yeah.
for years. Yeah. Like, he's done a lot of
He's
stuff.
got a huge body of work, too.
Yeah.
Another
Do you
one I
remember
thought
what
we had
his
talked
license
about.
plate in the movie was?
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, guess what? That car was his.
Oh, my
That
God.
license plate was his real license plate.
Oh, Bradley.
I'm sure he's embarrassed now.
I don't mind the car, because in this
feel
era,
like-
everybody had a Camaro, but the license plate,
I feel like there might have been some typecasting here.
there might have been.
Were you an arrogant 20-something dude?
I wonder if after this movie, people just kept offering him those roles. He's like, ooh, yeah, I should get rid of that license plate.
Right? They were like, oh yeah, no, people are going to hate you for that license plate.
Yep.
Ron Canada was Graydon, and he can currently be seen in The Orville and Jack Ryan.
Nice.
John Davis Chandler was Bleak, and we I don't know if we mentioned him or not, but he was in another episode we covered, episode 41.
Sword and Sorcerer, a really early one.
A really early one. And Dan Ziski was Mr. Anderson, and he can currently be seen in House of Cards over on Netflix.
Nice.
So pretty much everybody on this list is still working.
Yeah, and you got to think this movie's 30-some odd years old now.
32 years. Almost 33. Yeah.
Almost 33 years, which makes me feel really old.
Yes.
Yeah. yeah.
So yeah, this movie, basically, Chris is, she's already feeling too old to be a babysitter at this point. This is, for the most part, both movies are coming-of-age movies. Discovering, for her, I think, moving out of that high school mentality, being with the popular guy at school, and really discovering that this guy's not so cool. Like, the kids see it.
Yeah.
And she's been, at the beginning of the movie, she's preparing for a date with this guy.
Their anniversary date.
And he bails.
Oh, because his sister is quote-unquote sick.
Yeah. Turns out he's just taking somebody else
Just
on
a liar.
a date to the same restaurant.
Just a liar.
Yes.
Oh, and her outfit, what was really funny as I was watching this, and I'm like, I guess this movie had a very big impact on me, because excluding the checkered skirt, if you moved it down a little lower and made the whole thing black, that was my grad dress.
It is very 50s looking. I liked it, though.
It was very classic, like the neckline and everything. I was looking at it going like, oh yeah, that's pretty much, this must have been what I wanted to wear.
Yeah, it didn't look as 80s as it might have. It did have more of a classic look to it.
Yeah.
Which is why I think this movie stands up as well as it does, because it doesn't have that 80s look all the way
not
through.
a lot of the wardrobe, the hair, like it's still all kind of
neutral.
Yeah, it feels, I think that's why the movies age so well, is because it doesn't, there's not a whole lot keeping it in its time frame other than the
station
setting,
wagon,
the cars, etc.
Her jacket and scarf, I was obsessed with when I was younger. I'm like, I love that look. I could still wear that look. It's awesome.
Yeah, they give the same jacket to Sabrina Carpenter in the remake. Which was a nice little touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and I didn't really think about that until just now, mind you. But I think that's part of why it's, like you said, it stands up so well, because it's timeless in terms of the look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's styles that are still look pretty decent.
Yeah. There's moments you see though that are striking. Like, sorry to skip to the end where she confronts him in the French restaurant and his date's hair.
Oh, yes, that's very 80s,
I was startled, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see how that happened. Oh, no, what were we thinking?
Actually, you know what I was thinking?
Go figure. The girl that's cheating is the only one that didn't remain timeless.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, I mean, she was nowhere near as attractive as Elisabeth Shue. It's like, this really speaks to the male mindset, especially in the 80s. It's like, I'm going to go for the less attractive, easy girl.
You know
what? Are you kidding? Everybody thought she was a Playboy centerfold in this movie.
I know. That's what I mean, though. Elizabeth Shue was a beautiful woman even then. And then you have this woman who's nowhere near as attractive as Elizabeth Shue.
But you know what? I think that was largely a problem. I think if we took that hair away and we changed some of the makeup, she would be an attractive woman. I think just the horrors of the 80s being slapped on her
that's possible.
is what made a terrible mistake.
We already know why Mike was cheating on her. Is he says it right in the argument in the restaurant, is those thighs are locked shut.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, is you go for the slightly less attractive easy girl rather than the attractive, intelligent girl who's not going to put out until she's ready.
Yeah, and she speaks to her character's maturity. Yeah. Granted, I mean, Elisabeth Shue, I think, was around 22 when she did this role, playing 17.
Yeah, that's not a big stretch, 80s.
Though. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know. The whole thing about it, too, is like, this slightly easy girl, but it's sort of like, there's some slut shaming in this. It's sort of like the poor girl. They're both being played by this douche. Like, she's like, well, if I'm easy, guys will go out with me.
I don't think...
Oh, no, she knew. She was mortified when she saw Chris walk in the door. She knew.
And I don't think even Elisabeth Shue's character realizes how pretty she actually is. Because once guys start mistaking her for a Playboy centerfold, it's like, really?
Yeah, but that was
she's embarrassed by it. So at one point, I almost thought that she's like, I needed the money.
I know. But and that's kind of what I enjoyed about like the guy, the carjacker guy, where he's like, she's fine, but she's not you. Yeah. I mean, that was the sweetest thing.
For being what This feels to me like a mix of Home Alone and when we did the Out of Towners.
Yeah.
And much like the Out of Towners, she does, with all the chaos that's happening around her with the kids, she does find a lot of people that are willing to help her.
Yeah.
Joe is a moron. He's a very sweet moron, and I don't think he's stupid in a way, but it was like, okay, they hopped in the car when he was jacking it, but he probably should have left them outside before driving into the chop shop. Like, you're dumb.
Yeah, I
What
know.
did you think was going to happen?
Yes. Yeah.
I
Well, of
don't
course-
know if he's stupid or he just thinks he's untouchable because
Yeah,
he
I
jacks
don't-
all the cars.
He certainly doesn't give two shits about getting in trouble with those guys.
No, he really
Yeah.
doesn't.
I think he just thinks he's above all of this.
Yeah, I loved his, like, just outward confidence and cockiness.
Yes. Oh, and when she's just losing it in the front seat, it's like, put on your seatbelt. Sarah, it's time for your cough medicine.
I mean,
I'm still in control.
And before that, like, they had this, scary looking
Tow truck driver
when they're
Yes,
driving
Mr.
into the
Pruitt.
city. She was going to go save Brenda, and these jerk kids, you're taking this with you. You have to.
Yeah.
Why? Or we'll tell.
Oh, yep.
They
the
wanted
only
to go on an
card
adventure.
kids have.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the blowout, and then this guy comes up and really scary looking, and then she's really embarrassed when it turns out to be a tow truck. He's willing to take the car back
Get her a
and
tire?
even pay for the tire.
Yeah.
Out of the kindness of his heart, yeah.
Yeah, and then he finds out his wife is having sex with another man over the radio.
Yeah.
So by somebody he's clearly had somebody watching his house.
Yes. He's had his suspicions.
Yeah.
Like, this has been something in progress for quite some time.
Absolutely.
I'm like, oh, good. Let's take you to a murder now.
Oh, but it's so bizarre. Like, he's just such a kindly man, but then you see the dark side. It's sort of like when you talk about Home Alone, like the old scary dude in Home Alone, he's actually a good guy who saves Kevin. But in this one, it's sort of, they just went farther than that. They go to the saving and then go to the crazy.
Well, they do the double flip, right? Because
Yeah.
he's scary, then he's not, then he's scary again, then he's not.
And I mean, we got to keep in mind this movie, I think, came out through the Touchstone label,
Yes.
so
Yes.
they do push it a little further. Like they did, like I said, they do have the Playboy. There is a swear.
Yes.
Don't fuck with the babysitter line, which I opened
Yes.
the film with. When I watched this on Disney Plus, it's "Don't fool with the babysitter." I was so mad.
Oh.
And I don't remember if they actually show any of the nudity from the Playboy magazine.
No, I
No,
don't
it's
think they
all
do.
well
It's all
covered.
implied.
Yeah, like in my version, I didn't see any cuts there, but they got awfully close to showing you pages without showing you anything.
Yeah,
at all.
and that's the way it is in
You
the,
could see,
in the
like-
unedited version as well.
Yeah, you could see this face that looks like Elisabeth Shue and this sexy pose, but you can't actually see any.
Yeah, and
It's
there's
very
like,
burlesque.
There's
Yeah.
very strategically placed blankets and stuff like that.
A
too.
towel.
Yeah.
I think she's getting out of the shower
Yeah.
at one point. That's
Okay, so I wasn't sure if I'd missed it or not because I was trying to remember. I'm like, well, I know that line's "Don't fuck with the babysitter."
yeah. I know that was so good. Can you imagine? You're sitting there, it's like, look, we just have to get off. Can you just kill each other just a little bit
Yeah.
later?
And all that's going away in the Disney Channel version.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just frying pan fire, frying pan fire, frying pan fire.
The subway.
Yes.
That was the "Don't fuck with the rival gangs." It's like nobody's on that train, and then they're coming in from both sides of the train.
With
Yeah.
kids in between them, it's like
They would have noticed.
they would.
Yeah.
They were supposedly didn't care. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, at a certain point, you've got to address it, even if you are a gang leader.
Yes. But it gave that great tough moment though, where she pulls the knife out of Brad's foot.
Yeah,
Yes.
and waves it in his face.
And delivers that wonderful line.
Yeah.
The babysitter. I watched. Okay, it's a bad movie, but I watched it recently again just because it's dumb and I like it. Dracula 2000.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that they lifted sort of the equivalent of this, where Johnny Lee Miller's like, "You don't fuck with an antique stealer."
Well, I think it's just generally funny if you're saying "Don't fuck with
Something innocuous.
Enter inane, innocuous profession here."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Like when Peter Nyong'o, like, don't fuck with a kindergarten teacher. Don't
Yeah.
fuck with this person.
I think it's just always going to be funny.
Yes.
Don't fuck with the podcast.
Don't fuck with a taxidermist?
Oh, I don't know. I think that one follows.
I think that does apply.
Yeah,
I think anybody who's carving up formerly living things into art for your living room is generally going to be a terrifying person.
Fair enough.
So that one doesn't work at all.
No.
It's not funny. That's just terrifying.
Don't fuck with the bouncy castle dealer.
I like that.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, that's better. Give me an idea for a horror movie, though.
Don't fuck with the dog walker. We've got poo on us.
Oh, my.
Okay, so anyway.
I've got doggy bags and they're full
of poop. What do you...
There's your tagline for a movie.
I got doggy bags and they're loaded. Oh my god, that would totally work. Do like a Keanu thing, but somebody's dog.
Okay, there was a line when Brad's taken to the hospital. And it was the slip you the wiener line.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
I was like, whoa. This is some innuendo.
It was
for a kids movie that was awfully raunchy.
Yeah, yes. I mean it is a PG movie. I mean otherwise they wouldn't be able to insert the
2 F words.
The 2 F words that they do use.
Oh, I think they do that just so they don't get a G.
Yeah. I think it's PG-13. You can get a couple of swears.
If you're a G, then the parents don't want to go and they drop off the kids. Mm-hmm. If it's PG, then the parents and the kids are there. Mm-hmm. At least that was the mentality in the 80s.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was very... It wasn't even thinly veiled. I mean, it was it was quite blatant that it was their way of saying something they needed to say without saying it outright, right? Mm-hmm. But yes, and I mean, and the thing is, that is something that we would say it would have said in the 80s.
Yeah. Wiener was a big thing.
Yeah. That's true.
I have to admit that there's some kids that probably won't get parts of this movie. Largely the references to writing someone a check.
Yes.
Yeah, at this point, the only people who write checks are when you're, paying your rent. I think that's the only time any checks pop out anymore.
Absolutely.
Nobody walks around with checkbooks anymore.
Yeah. Or when you're handing in a void one for your automatic debit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that it's still applied. I like how they did that in the remake where, she wants to pay for the tire, pay for the car, and the damage to the car. In the end, he didn't wind up paying for the tire. He paid for the window that got shot out.
That he shot out.
He shot out.
Which I love the idea is like going, that was me, my bad.
Yeah. Which, yes, probably would cost more than the tire.
Absolutely.
So I thought $50 for a tire was actually pretty reasonable. But she left her purse back at the residence. So then they carried that over, which was quite nice.
That was good.
In the remake.
And it makes sense because that's the kind of thing you do in a panic situation is you just sort of like, let's get going. Yeah. And you don't think about all the stuff you need to have with you.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even just that. Like when you're trying to like introduce like that conflict and the struggle that people are having, if you have money, it's easier to get out of some of these scrapes.
Yes.
If you don't, then there's more you can do with it.
The remake does acknowledge something with cell phones. In fact, the whole thing starts because of cell phones.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought I don't know, it's something we address all the time on this show, like how much cell phones will change a movie. Mm-hmm. And these guys did kind of embrace that. Like, I mean, yes, the Disney Channel one watch is sillier than this one. Watch is more for kids. Yeah, so I kind of appreciated how that they instigated how that movie changed because of it. Unfortunately, I mean, that movie does watch with a more G rated in mind. There's definitely sillier and cartoonier, but I kind of appreciate it. It got that whole thing, that whole chaos rolling. Unfortunately, it's a really crowded movie, and I think it suffers for it.
Yeah. And the fact that, and this is where it felt really Disney to me, is where all of our main characters had to learn a lesson.
Yeah, and I kind of, there's too many kids. I think that was part of the problem. Like they should have each been.
It was hard just to keep their names straight. I couldn't keep their names straight.
Yeah, but there's one thing I did appreciate about it where to kick it off would be like a phone call in the old one, but how it would be like a kid sneaking out into the city to go to a concert makes complete and perfect sense.
Yes.
It does. the forced narrative in the original of going to rescue your friend in the city, when you're babysitting, it's like, oh, come on. Like, you don't have any other people you can call. You know what I'm doing right now.
This
true. This is your fault.
Yes.
But Brenda's sort of, I don't know.
She's panicked.
It's panicked, and it's something to do with, like, when you're in high school and you're a young woman, it's kind of like you do have sort of that one best friend. There's not other people you can call, and you're definitely not calling your parents once you run away from home. So it's really the one person she's relying on. So it reads fine to me because that's sort of what I got from it, because she can also trust Chris won't tell anybody else. She doesn't know other people might. It's, you have the one person.
Right. And as weak as the setup was at the beginning, she's already established with Chris that she's unhappy at home.
Yeah. And she's kind of, I think she's not as popular. She's kind of a loner. Chris is probably the one person she's got. High school is very lonely, guys.
Especially if you're a little bit weird.
Yes.
Like she was.
I was like, I aspired to be Elisabeth Shue, but I was Penelope M. Miller. Let's just not ignore this. Without glasses, I was her. Weird, odd, a big mess. It's just what happened.
Yeah, I mean, all those scenes in the bus station felt a little bit forced too. I didn't think they really added anything to the movie.
Yeah, no,
they were fun.
There additional silliness to kind of torture Brenda just so they could do the punchline later when they finally pick her up
and say you've never been with.
You won't believe what I've been through,
and
it's like nowhere near what the rest of them have been through.
Yeah, although there was being in a phone booth and have a guy flashing you a gun, pretty.
That's a little terrifying.
Pretty terrifying.
But hey, you didn't have a kid hanging on the outside of a 40-story building.
Oh.
Or one of your wards get stabbed in the foot.
Yeah.
Well, through the toes. But yeah, I'm kind of glad they didn't do the building thing in the remake, because that I was watching it and I'm like, this moment still terrifies the shit out of me.
It's really well shot because, I mean, in reality, she was only about 12 feet up. But that shows you how well that whole scene was shot and how convincing it looked. But damn,
only
I couldn't believe they did that.
Yeah,
with those that tiny frame. That's all you're holding on to. Like, it's still, it's just so horrifying.
And I thought they were going to do a similar scene in the remake because it does end up at the gala. The final act ends up at the parents' gala and trying to duck them and still rescue the kids and all that. And it just winds up being the ferret. I'm like, well, why did you take that with you?
See, that's the thing.
I don't even understand the importance of the ferret. I've watched the movie. I still don't get it. It's apparently worth a lot.
It's a rare ferret.
That they stole.
That's the one. I kind of got sucked into the remake. I did kind of enjoy it at the end because it sort of felt to me like when you talk about Penelope Ann Miller and it didn't add anything, it sort of felt like they thought, yeah, that doesn't add anything. So let's put the two characters together rather than having parallel stories. They're having the same story.
Yeah. It almost feels like the movie was written for animation in a lot of ways and might have worked better as animation because, I mean, they even have the purple on the ferret.
Yeah.
Just it's a rare ferret because it's part purple.
Yeah. Well, and the side guys, most of the time when I was watching them do whatever they were doing, aside from the odd chase scene, most of the time I'm like, you could edit them completely out of this movie and not really miss much.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the original movie, the bad guys are chasing them because they were stupid enough to write their notes in a Playboy that Daryl lifts. It's funny because Daryl's the one who's constantly kind of getting them in trouble. He's almost reveling in it. In a lot of ways.
He's got a big mouth and he's a perv.
Because there's two babysitters in the remake, and that winds up being Sofia, Carson, Lola. She's kind of replaces the Daryl character.
But in a more fun way, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was funny because I was texting you when while I was watching this as usual.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is really not so good. And about 5 minutes after I said that, I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
It gets better.
Good.
No, I was like...
I started off being like, oh, it feels so Disney and cartoonish, but then I just got sucked right in and I couldn't help myself.
The same thing happened with me as well. Like, I was even dreading just going into it because I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a Disney Channel thing and it's not going to be that good. And it starts off pretty hackneyed, and as it gets going, I'm like, oh, this is all right. And I enjoyed the rap scene almost as much, if not more, than the blues scene in the original movie.
Be with you on that one.
I was wondering about that because I'm sitting there going,
good.
it's so fun. I wonder if the guys really like this.
Yeah, no, I
loved
really, I did. I loved it. And
I was actually rolling my eyes when we got to it. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. This is going to suck. Oh, this doesn't suck.
Yes.
Well, it's funny because I was looking for something about it on YouTube, and I just kept popping up the rap battle scene. I'm like, I'm not going to watch it yet. I'm not going to watch it yet. When I get home, I am going to go watch it again.
Yes.
Because it was that much fun.
I did find myself rewatching that scene on YouTube after I watched it, just because I enjoyed that scene.
They're both quite talented rappers.
Yeah.
Well, both of them have good singing careers.
Yeah.
They both have
Yeah.
multiple albums.
Yeah.
Well, that's
As
the
per the Disney Channel
Yeah.
marketing machine, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they do with their clones.
Well, I think we set that up pretty good. So let's actually run the trailer for the Disney Channel remake. And it was, the reason why we're kind of doing it, it was a marquee for the Disney Channel because it was their 100th original movie for the channel. Normally we don't do TV movies, but it happens and there are rules to break. So get off my back.
Well, and you know what? I think now that people are inside streaming a lot of stuff these days, I think streaming platforms might be
Well, and we're going to have to
right
acknowledge
now.
that as well because, I mean, when you get a 3.5-hour Scorsese movie landing directly on Netflix,
It's a movie.
We're going to have to change our rules somewhat and make them a little more fluid anyway.
Yes.
So
We have to go with the times.
It will be a case-by-case basis. we'll weigh the pros and cons of doing so. Here's the trailer for the 2016 Adventures in Babysitting.
Hi. You guys are home so soon. Is everything okay? Couldn't be better, Helen.
Well, that's almost true. Lola grabbed our real babysitter, Jenny's phone, by mistake.
Way to go, Klutz.
And answered.
I'm desperate for a babysitter. I'll pay double.
Of course.
This is not happening.
That's when things got interesting.
What is going on here?
Relax, girlfriend. I'm just trying to help.
I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not your friend.
There was a fire. A minor brush with the law.
Driving without a license is illegal.
A major run from some bad guys.
I hate kids.
A rare sapphire ferret. Green hair. A roller derby. Fake tattoos.
Cool, right?
Tow trucks. Police station. A rap battle.
Your parents are never going to ask me to babysit again.
If they do, I'd ask for $10 more an hour.
But that's our little secret.
Is everything okay?
You children are angels.
Don't mess with the babysitter.
All right, that was Adventures in Babysitting from 2016. And hey, the Wild Side song in the end credits there. I was surprised that was a Disney made for this movie because, like, even I was aware of that song.
Yep.
So it tells you how much of a hit that wound up becoming for Sabrina Carpenter and Sofia Carson, who both have wonderful voices as well, and they're part of the Disney cloning vats that put out kids that can sing.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole Disney thing. If you can act and dance, you're fine, but if you can't sing, you're out. Like, it's sort of, you can't, unless you can do all three things, they don't take you.
Yeah, and it's always been that way.
It always has been, yes.
This adaptation was written by Tiffany Paulson, who did Turkey Drop in 2019 with a budget of $9 million, which was about $2 million more than the original film. Of course,
30 years later.
Yeah, of course, we can't really compare because it didn't have like a theatrical release, but the original film opened with just under $3 million domestic and wound up grossing almost $35 million in its run, which is pretty good.
Yes.
Pretty decent for a $7 million investment, that's for sure.
And mind you, it's also kind of different when it's being released on the company that's making it. You're sort of using the marketing, but you're not really.
Yes.
You're not paying other people to market it.
Yeah, and this was the 100th original film for the Disney Channel, and they ran all 99 movies leading up to the release of this film on the channel back in 2016, so it was a big deal for them at the time. And this was a really recognizable name.
Yes.
It's not the first time people talked about remaking it. At one point, they did make a pilot that got passed on. You might be able to find it on YouTube at this point. It's been a while.
Or you might not. It is Disney.
It was the 90s. They did try to do a remake much earlier in 2010, but again, didn't get off the ground. I mean, the original film sat in production hell for a long time. It was originally developed in the 1960s with Jane Fonda in mind.
Oh my gosh.
And then was shelved by the time it hit the 70s and then revived in the 80s finally. And it still had a long pre-production and lots of people came and went.
I want to see Adventures of Babysitting with Jane Fonda as Barbarella babysitting alien children. That's what I want.
When I think about the 60s, I'm like, Jane Fonda, that would have been pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
there's lots of people who would have been cool when I think about it in the 80s and 60s. At the time, yeah, that would have been a fine film for her.
Yeah.
It absolutely would have been, yes.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot of fun. It's still fun. Like, yeah, it's one of those ones where you don't know why it was in development hell, but it's sort of, you can see sort of why people sort of were passing out, like, is this a kid's film? Is this an adult's film? Because there's stuff happening. There's a lot of danger. A lot of it is scary. And it's really walking that line, which is really interesting. So I'm guessing people probably didn't know what to do with it.
It's not a complicated movie to film, so I'm quite shocked because it's a good script. Why it didn't actually come out in the 60s. I mean, yeah, the Thor thing probably wouldn't have happened, and it was not in the original script, but as a comic book fan in the 80s, I certainly liked that reference, and I like how they kind of carried it over into the remake. Like the little girl
I loved it with the roller derby.
The roller derby, because it made for a fun... They wound up taking that subway rumble and then just moving into the police station between the two derby teams.
Yes.
And her heroic derby star was there.
And the roller skates made more sense with the roller derby person.
Yeah, because the little girl who was a Thor fan in the original film also had skates that got lost, which wound up being the device that has that college guy returning them.
Yes. Yes. I had similar skates.
Yeah, did you use that to pick up guys?
No.
No.
No, when I had the similar skates, I was like 9.
Well, then might not have worked as well.
Well, I don't want those men picking me up.
That's a little creepy. This movie was directed by John Schultz, who directed The Honeymooners in 2005.
Oh.
I don't remember who was in it, but it was like the black version of The Honeymooners.
Wasn't it Cedric the Entertainer?
I probably was. Yes. That would have been about right when his career was just
trying to
booming.
remember who the other person was. But yeah, I
don't think I've ever seen it, but I was a big fan of the original Honeymooners.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Sofia Carpenter as Jenny Parker, and she was in Horns and Girl Meets World. Sophia Carson was Lola Perez. So the oldest member of this cast, because she was like 21 when she shot this, much like Elisabeth Shue in the original film.
But she's not in high school in this one.
No.
So they've marketed it as her older.
I got the feeling like her and Sabrina Carpenter were supposed to be close to the same age, but Sabrina's like 15.
Oh, no, they explained that.
Yeah.
Do they? Yeah, Sabrina's character, she was accelerated. She skipped a couple years of high school. Skipped a grade. And
she was going for early admission to college.
So they established that she was younger. But old enough to drive.
Yeah, she was very together. Yeah. I mean, the actress was 15. She was probably playing a little older. And the way she carries herself, the way they put her hair back, makes her look a little more mature.
Yeah,
for sure.
But because her character was old enough to drive, because she does drive, right?
Yeah, and Lola was like, she didn't get into college because they mentioned that she just didn't go.
Yeah, she was more of an artsy person and didn't apply to our college as well. But
because her grades were too low.
Yeah, and this was a case where one teaches the other. One's not very responsible, very carefree, and very reactive and
adventurous.
And like when they were both applying when they first meet for that internship, she brought a project that literally was still wet when she brought it, and this other project of Jenny's was this carefully crafted and meticulous, and you can see like there's technical work here, but it doesn't have the spontaneous flavors that
it doesn't
Lola
have the passion.
has and the passion, and it's something that they wind up learning from each other. One learns responsibility at the end, the other one learns that it's like, hey, you know what? I missed out on a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's time to take a little time and have some fun.
Going back to the Disney lessons, everybody has to learn.
Absolutely, and it's. But the other thing about it too is like supporting each other, getting each other through these things, like, and also, when one of them gives advice, throwing it back at the other, like the one point where she doesn't want to put on the high heels and put on the mink coat and go in there. She's like, look, you have a chance to do something. And it's the exact same line that this girl told her earlier. I love that idea where it's like, yeah, if you're going to give advice, you go and take advice.
Exactly.
Your own advice, no less.
Yeah. I'll round out the cast here. Nikki Hahn was Emily Cooper. She was in American Housewife on television. Mallory James Mahoney was Katie Cooper, who was on Bunked. A lot of these kids were. Max Gausowetz was Trey Anderson, was in something called Dreaded Rose. Jet Jurgensmeyer was Bobby Anderson, and I think was he the kid, the chef kid?
If he's the chef kid, yeah, Jet.
He was in Last Man Standing on television and American Sniper.
Wow.
Yeah. Madison Horcher was AJ Anderson and was in Mail Order Monsters. Kevin Quinn was Zach Chase, also on Bunked, and is a voice in the Kingdom Hearts 3 game.
Nice.
Jillian Vigman was Helen Anderson, and she was in all 3 Hangover movies.
Yeah.
Yay, her.
Yeah.
I'd seen her in a few other movies, though. I'm trying to remember it. She's very memorable, but I don't know.
Gabrielle Miller was Donna Cooper, very recognizable for Trish.
Gas.
Yes, Corner Gas, yes.
I'm like, Lacey moved to
Canadian,
Chicago.
Canadian treasure. We all know her very well here. Michael P. Northey was Tiny, who was in Once Upon a Time as Friar Tuck. And he was one of the bad guys.
A big guy
movie.
called Tiny. Ooh.
Yeah, but I was like noticing as the kids' names, like their character names are very kind of generic.
Yes.
But their regular names are very...
Right?
I'm like, well, these are very modern names.
Yes. Jet.
Jet. So I thought that was kind of funny when I was writing this all up. And of course, we've never talked about any of them before.
Not one of them.
So young.
Yes.
One of them, and I can't remember which one of them, was in the first season of American Horror Story and also in the, not the most recent one, but the one prior to that.
I don't remember which one it was, yeah.
But yeah, I was a little surprised. I'm like, because they're still quite young, and so to have been in the first
generally
season.
we'll tend Disney will sign like multi-year contracts, so they can't do anything that kind of jeopardizes that image of the innocent and proper child.
And that's why it stuck out to me, because it's like American Horror Story and this.
Clearly doesn't have that contract. So.
Yes.
Or might have signed it before and be like, well, no, I already signed an American Horror Story. I can't undo that.
Well, I mean, American Sniper as well, so clearly there's loopholes in those contracts.
Maybe, yeah. No, it was quite... I have to say, when we were talking about like Gabrielle Miller, I'm like, the whole time, like, these kids have had a pretty rough night, but the whole time I'm like, oh, she's had a terrible night. Her and her husband.
Yes.
Yeah,
I felt so bad for her.
Especially when she looks down and sees she's wearing 2 different shoes.
Yes.
And I love the way they set that up. Right when she's saying, which one should I torture my feet with tonight?
Yeah, my toes or my heels.
Yeah,
one of both.
I felt there was something that they missed. There was one line in there that made me uncomfortable, where I was like, and then I was like, oh, this is a gross line, but if they did something with it, it would have been good. Where the little girl was like, you know what, a manicurist can really help you with those hands. And she's like, how old are you? And she says 7. He's like, you don't want to know what I was doing with my hands when I was 7. And I'm like, that's a gross line.
That is a gross line. And actually, you set me up perfectly for something that would bother me about the first one.
Yeah.
But I'll let you finish first.
I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if it was thought about it, but they could have done with this where the older artist Lola was like, well, yeah, when I was 7, I was getting dirty, using clay, using paints. I was creating stuff, and have sort of like the story of how they relate to each other, where Lola does like art and painting and all this stuff, but this little girl, how she creates his images and looks and like clothes, and because that's what she does several times throughout the movie.
Yeah, and they wind up bonding over this because she paints her hair green. She's a little more gothy, a little more rebellious.
No, that's the older girl, but like the tiny little blonde girl.
Oh, yeah, no, where
they seem to have nothing in common.
She's very much into the rich fashion princess stuff.
Yeah, and so like her and Lola should not be able to associate in any way, but to have them connect on that would be interesting.
Well, she sees when she comes in, she sees how these kids express themselves, and she's very amused by it, and she's like, go for it,
yeah.
Yeah,
okay, but anyway.
There, but it's funny because you brought up that it made you a little uncomfortable. And in the original film, right after Sarah gets rescued, when she grabs bread, she says, "Oh, Brad." It's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy the way she says it.
Yeah, you texted me and you said this sounds an awful lot like Rocky Horror Picture Show,
I did,
and then I called you a Rocky Horror nerd.
Yeah,
the line reading wasn't good, but I kind of, you know what,
it was very sultry.
Yeah.
Well, should we hear it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Please.
Let's hear it.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you isolate it like that, like you really hear that it's not.
Yeah.
Really doesn't really sound like somebody who's just been rescued.
Yeah.
It sounds like something else, and it's really creepy coming out of a 7-year-old's mouth.
It sounds like what, because like I say, this was, when this movie came out, I was about 13. So this is like in the, where you have crushes on people bit, and I had 2, and actually one of them was Keith Coogan, partly because he took good care of his little sister. I thought that was very cute, crush on him, and a crush on the carjacker guy. Because he always seems so nice to them.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. That I didn't think about. I think I glossed that over a lot just because I can't think like that.
Well, I don't normally either, but it was really glaring to me on this viewing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into some comparisons here. I do like how much this movie has its own flavor and its own feel while still kind of pulling from the format of the original film. Yes, we've got 2 babysitters. They're competing for the same internship, and they're competing babysitters as well.
Yeah.
Lola learns that, hey, there's actually some money that can be made here, and she kind of needs it for her parking ticket.
Yes.
Tickets, plural, actually.
Plural.
Many.
There's a mix-up, and they wind up dropping their phones at the same time and grabbing each other's phones, so there's an opportunity to babysit that Jenny has already turned down.
Yeah.
Because she's already made another commitment, yeah.
Yeah. And the, I think it's the Coopers, no, the Andersons, offer double, so she says, hey, I do have a friend who would like to do this. And so she takes the gig, and she's clearly has never taken care of kids or herself, because it's like, she doesn't know how to do laundry.
No. That I found problematic. I think
you know, you got one kid who's playing chef in the kitchen. The other one, I don't know.
He's trying to find his flavor that's going to set him apart in this cupcake competition.
Yeah. And she goes to, hey, hot tub. So she goes to hang out in the hot tub, and next thing you know, fires are started, and dogs are making a mess, and then the machine's exploding.
And I felt that to be a bit much, and that's right about where I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because they had an opportunity there, because she instantly related to the little girl and to the chef kid. Like she connected with them really quickly.
Yeah.
So there was a great opportunity there for her to sort of naturally fall into being at least a decent caregiver. But instead, they went the other direction.
Yeah,
and
they're fine. I'm going to go enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And it ends up being a disaster. And the whole sole purpose was to set up the disaster that they had to clean up when they got back.
Yeah, so you got one of the kids who calls Jenny saying, hey, everything's their regular babysitter. Everything's getting chaotic. So she picks up her kids. Was just going to go over because I think they're like neighbors.
Yeah.
Because all the parents are at the same party.
Yep.
Yes, they're best friends.
Yeah, they're best friends. So she was just going to wander over. They were like, no, we're all going. So everybody gets in the car. They go over there.
Well, they take the mother's SUV, which again, I have one problem with this. If you have an SUV and you don't want to take it into the city because it will quote unquote get dirty, you shouldn't be allowed to have a vehicle because you don't understand how they work.
That was later. That was a little bit later. She hops in her own car to go over there, or maybe they just walk over there. And then when they realize they have to go in the city because the one kid is snuck out, then they grab the SUV because there's too many people to throw into
her Jeep
any vehicle that they had. So
and that brings up something I really liked about the remake was the way that they used that concert throughout the movie. They set it up with first when the guy asked Jenny
to the concert
when it's actually Lola and she blows him off. And then again, that's why the older brother has gone missing, is because he wants to go.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's also where.
And then the scalping of the ticket, which gets Lola arrested. Yeah. And then that's where they go back to sort out the mix-up because she wants to go out with this guy Zach, and Zach thought she blew him off and was unimpressed because that was actually Lola who did it.
Yes, right. But
so
it was
they're
really well used.
Yeah, so it was a device that got used and used and used, and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and gets you to your end game of it all as well.
Yeah, no, it worked beautifully. Like you said, it did what we always ask: is take the core concept of the original and do something new with it, and they did.
And and something when when you introduce something, it should move the plot forward, which it does. Because I mean, like they're scalping the ticket to get the $100 to get the car, like it all kind of ties.
Yeah, and they still have a lot of that core structure. I mean, it's a little different. The pawn shop winds up replacing the chop shop.
Yep.
The Jeopardy's a lot less, but he's had his picture taken with this ferret that he's stolen, and they want the camera to get the photo.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really want to hurt the kids. You
No,
don't
they're
get the
nowhere near as
feeling-
malicious.
No.
They wind up
They're
a lot
Disney
like Home
malicious.
Alone. Yeah,
Yeah.
they wind up getting traumatized a lot by the
Yes.
children
Yep.
along the way.
The scene in the dry cleaner was awesome, though.
It was so silly and dumb. I
Yeah.
loved it. And when they're jumping down the thing.
The chain, yeah.
But when they get tied up in the big laundry thing, the two bad guys, and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna suffocate in there.
Yeah.
It's that peril where I'm like going, if you think about it, it's really bad, but it's funny when you look at it.
Well, and it was a great way to get all that mud off them.
It was,
Yes.
yeah. No, I thought that too. Like, I'm going to put them in the wash, and that way we can get the mud off of them.
And then they don't have to do that makeup anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But, I mean, this still winds up pulling quite a bit from the original film, too. You know, like I said, with the kid with the roller skates and the derby star, everybody, and all the kids got their own little thing, too.
Yep.
So you've kind of got the goth kid who's a little rebellious and is trying to be noticed
Yes.
with the green hair and the henna tattoo.
Obvious middle child.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you've got the prima donna kids,
The baby.
the teenager. We don't get to know very much of, other than the fact that he's a little rebellious himself, and that's the one they're going to rescue from going to the concert.
But you
Well,
have
he's self-absorbed more than rebellious.
Selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have the other kid. She's the one who's trying to go goth and get noticed because she has a crush on him.
Yes.
Yeah, from the other family, and you've got the wannabe chef.
Yes.
Who gives us a nice ratatouille moment at the gala.
That's so funny, though. And then the people are like, I hear he's a prodigy from the pit. Just really embarrassed. He's like, bring me something new.
It's good that we get to see like the children excel at things that we already see they're good at.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and
or
one-
have interests in.
Well, they did a good job of sort of rounding out all of the characters in the remake. I mean, the characters in the original were to a certain extent fairly superficial.
Yeah. But I mean, considering how crowded it was, and like you've got five children, and I think only 3 of them stand out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They should have. Yeah.
I think so. Even now, having watched it, I don't know all their names.
No.
I know.
I've read them out, but I couldn't tell you which one's which.
I sort of know their characters, but I don't know anything else.
Yeah, so it was just the cast was too big. And that was definitely part of the problem. It was getting a little muddy and trying to haul around all those children across town constantly. Yeah.
But it also worked in their favor to when they lose track of the one girl when they're trying to steal the camera from her.
That many kids?
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're fighting already, and then you have this many kids you're trying to keep an eye on. It's so easy to lose track of one.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Especially when you're not
absolutely.
paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it did work in its favor in some points, but at the same time, not every child got its serviced as well. Like the young girl who's sort of into diamonds and stuff like that, they kind of established her personality without really giving her a story. Right?
And
So
I mean, yeah, they are caricatures rather than characters.
yeah.
And she sort of saves the day a couple of times, but again, very superficially. Like she dresses up Lola to go into the gala because they won't recognize her. And then they also, she remembers that her mom keeps like $100 in her
I thought it was a
jacket.
little like, oh, this is pretty sketchy if they're going to rip off mom.
Yeah.
She's going to notice that after the horrible night she's had.
I lost $100.
$120.
$120, yeah. Because you've got to check both pockets.
Yeah.
Oh, thankfully the $20 wound up coming in handy. Cause,
Yes.
I mean, they had to get the SUV out of impound from parking in the wrong spot, and then the rush back, because at the end of the original film, the cleanup wasn't nearly what
No.
they had to do, so they had all these kids running around cleaning up the kitchen and the mess
And the
with the
dog.
washer and the dog with the food that he put on the floor. And
Well, the attention to detail, because that's also how the green got washed out of the other girl's hair, was while she was washing the dog. And I do have to say this, is there's nothing really wasted in this remake.
Yeah.
Every single thing
it's well thought out,
is
and it's
well thought out.
Go, 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 go,
Yeah.
go, go. Like I said, like you said, there's some very cartoony moments in the beginning of the movie. You're like, oh, this feels movie of the week-ish.
Yeah.
But once it gets going,
It's like, holy smokes, yeah, and it's fun. It is stupid fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the original to me, but it's stupid fun, and it's a good
I
watch.
I watch as younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, a nothing wasted where you think they're right kind of outside the police station. And this guy, the kid is being chased by these people and think, well, we should just tell the cops they're right there. But they're busy busting up the roller derby people, so they cannot help.
Yeah. I hated the thing with the ferret.
That should have been ditched.
That was the dumbest thing. That felt like straight out of a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean,
they could have made it anything else.
Yeah, like chased for some other reason.
Pawn shop. You're in a pawn shop and you're talking about stolen items and you come up with a ferret?
Well, the ferret was an animal for a reason, so that it could escape in the gala. Right.
Yeah.
And again, so it did serve its purpose, right? But it was by far the weakest plot point in the whole movie.
Yeah, because like again with these two guys, most of the time I just felt they could be easily just lifted out of this movie.
They didn't need to be there. They didn't serve the story in any way. Not like they did.
Like I said, they were meant to be the carjackers, but the carjackers you feel more jeopardy from.
Well, they're actually chasing them.
Yeah.
And there's certain instances where they drive the kids into a different situation, whereas they never really do in this movie, in the remake.
No,
I mean, aside from the dry cleaning shop,
because they're always kind of like leaving hints of where they're going next, so the pawn shop guys just wind up going to the next stop and waiting for them.
Yeah, and they're only there for some fun chase scenes, like the one in the dry cleaner and the one where they're chasing the roller skates, to give you your sort of that roller skate extreme sports bit, right? Which was fun.
Oh, FYI, I thought it was so brilliant when the bike locks, the bike rack, where the kid just goes underneath, and I'm like going, I have thought about that.
Yeah, I mean...
that would be a terrible way to go.
Like the escape in the dry cleaner, that was meant to be the same escape scene from the original film. From
Over the beams.
Over the beams, exactly.
There's a lot of height stuff in the original.
Yeah, there was. But once you actually start watching it, and you can actually see how well it does coordinate while still being really different.
Yeah.
The dueling babysitters wound up being a big part of that, actually. I like I said, Lola replaces Daryl.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll be real honest, when I saw that, I'm like, oh man, I don't know how this is going to work, but it works really well.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. You have your doubts within the first 15 minutes or so, but once it gets going, you're like, all right, this is okay, this is working.
But then you also get to the end too, which I really enjoyed, where she comes and sees her when it's like Monday and they're going to be discussing the internship, and she's like, no, I've taken out my application for it. You're right. It wasn't for me. I don't care that much about this stuff, and I'm going to start to live my life. But it's also, I think... She's
created all this extra time for herself. Why not?
Well, and they do, it's sort of a throwaway line partway through where, I mean, I think Lola asks her, I'm like, is there anybody else you can call? And she doesn't have anybody else because she's so busy filling her life with all these other things. It feels like she's adding Lola as a friend, as now she's experiencing friendships.
Yeah, because she's isolated herself by her drive, so she has no friends,
And through this adventure, Jenny's gotten herself a boyfriend through Zach, and Lola too. She winds up getting picked up by the cop that first tickets her in the first place. That kind of gets this whole ball rolling, and in the end winds up picking her up.
Yeah, and when she tells this incredible story about a big guy called Tiny and a skinny guy and a ferret, and nobody believes her, and then they end up being picked up at the gala, and he's like, oh, so yeah, a big guy named Tiny. Guy's like, oh believe she was completely telling the truth.
I do believe this.
It sounded weird, but it was true.
Given that they take the more adult themes out of it, it still works really well. And I would, for any of my friends that have kids who are in the 10 to 13 range, I would highly recommend this film. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
I mean, I actually did have fun watching it.
Yeah, most of the big moments of the original film have a counterpart in here. I don't want to break everything down for you, but like... the blues scene becomes a rap scene.
Yes.
And it's still, you're not going out until you sing.
Yeah. They want me to rap. And it's like, they want me to sing. There we go.
Yeah. You ain't getting off this stage without telling us the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the bit.
I felt ripped off in both movies. I'm like, well, I want to hear the bad guys do it.
Yeah, me too. I was just about to say that. I was literally just about to say that. Because they run into the same situation, but you never really get to see how they pull it off.
What's so funny...
They probably pulled their guns.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I'm looking in like the original movie. Yeah, and the bad guy's sort of staring down the guy with the guitar, but I'm like going, Yeah, I wouldn't go up against a guy with a car. I don't care how badass you think you are.
Granted, a black blues club in Chicago, if you would have pulled a gun on the club, they would have probably pulled a bunch more on you.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yeah. I would say that guy is like, he's going to sing the blues because he will not get out of there alive if he does not.
There are just some things you don't mess with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The only white people in that club were on that stage.
Yeah.
They did what they were asked to do.
But I got to say, like, those are probably both my favorite scenes in the movie, in either movie. Like, I liked when Elisabeth Shue did it. It was
Brenda's
a little
probably
more
dead.
boom 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 ba-da-da-da-da, boom boom boom
Yeah.
boom. But then the rap scene is like, oh, this is pretty catchy, and that's when you
Yeah.
really can tell, like, oh my
We
god,
ain't no
these,
quitters with a babysitter.
despite them rapping, you can hear how well they can sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they got that Wild Side song at the end,
Absolutely.
which became a big hit. So I'm like, oh, they really, really can sing.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they start off kind of awkward at the beginning of both of them.
Yeah.
Right? And then they slowly find their rhythm.
Build into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it works.
Although there's that real, just that moment where you can tell, like, oh, now we're in the pre-record.
Yeah.
You know, it's all ADR here from here on in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to be done.
Yeah, even big movies wind up having it. It's like, okay, now you're just lip syncing to yourself.
Yeah.
That's just how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because they can't get that right tone live.
No, and that's just it. You don't have that background noise, and it's all, you could tell it was done in a airtight studio.
Well, not airtight. They would die. But
Disney
soundproof.
vat.
Yes.
Disney cloning vat.
Oh, no.
Airtight.
Wait. No.
We need a fresh one.
Here's the thing. It is airtight. They're like going, you do this right once, or we don't let you out and you die.
We can easily replace you.
We're so getting
And nobody
sued.
will notice.
So getting sued.
This is all fictional. We're fine now.
We're just saying stuff out loud.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
This is a fictional narrative we are creating in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
I did
Entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do fear the mouse.
The views of Disney do not necessarily reflect the views of this podcast. Oh, man. But I have to say, there's one thing I don't remember from the original. Whereas, okay, you know the bad guy's out on the window in the original movie? I forgot there's a post-credit scene where he's still out there.
Oh, I don't think I saw it.
Wait till the end of the credits.
I don't think I actually got to the end of the credits.
Oh, if you're at the end of the credits, he's out there, he's like, help. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. And you feel bad for him because he wasn't he was a bad guy, but he wasn't a bad guy.
But that's, you're killing somebody. That's still pretty bleak.
Well, he wasn't dead, but hopefully they went and got him.
So hopefully somebody saves him.
Well, not
yeah.
after the credits.
We don't know. I'd like to say somebody saved him.
Somebody did save him. I mean, yeah, he is. The one guy was going to come back. He's like, let's let him sweat it out.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
we'll lower the rope for him eventually.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to go into the IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes ratings here. The original film had a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb, and the remake here from 2016 got a 6 out of 10.
That's not
so
bad.
they're fairly comparable. This is where things get interesting. Now, what do you think the critic score for the original film is?
Ooh.
For Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah. I don't know. Critics can be kind of... I'm going to go 57.
Oh, that's really harsh.
I don't know. I thought the critics would do that. You're asking me about critics. I'm not what I would do.
I'm gonna actually. I think they actually would really like this, and I think they're gonna go like in the 73, 74.
Yeah, you're much closer. 75%.
Oh, okay.
What do you think the audience score was?
Original?
Mm-hmm. Original. I'm gonna go with Trish and say 57.
Nope.
I'm gonna say 75.
Yeah, it's still a fan favorite. 70%, a little less, but it was. They're fairly in line with the critics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now,
this one has a great disparity, I'm assuming.
What do you think the critics score for the remake is?
36.
60?
100%.
What?
Now, I will give this with a caveat. There are only 6 actual reviews, so there's not a consensus on this. But it sits at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, the audience score is a little more realistic at 66%.
Well, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Like, structurally, it all holds together. Everything goes from place to place.
It's got a weak start and a kind of hackneyed finish. But I mean,
that middle act or the middle portion is so good.
Yeah, I'd say the middle 70-80% is really, really enjoyable. I mean, it's just got that Disney almost Family Channel feel at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a fun ride.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we say, the only really weak point is those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's what we asked for a remake. It wound up becoming its own little thing while still paying homage to the original in lots of little clever ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's ironic because Disney didn't own Marvel at the time of the original film, and here's a whole lot of Thor. Now that they own it, in 2016, I think they owned it.
Yeah.
And no Marvel to be seen.
I was wondering, thinking about myself, I was like, you had an opportunity for Chris Hemsworth to be there.
I know, right? Like, come on, like the most obvious thing you could do.
And I was absolutely fine with it because after those first two Thor movies, like I liked the Thor and Adventures in Babysitting, but once I saw the first two boring Thor movies, I didn't want to see it in this. I was happy with the roller derby.
I mean, I was happy with the roller derby, but I feel they had a missed opportunity there.
I did too. I mean, I think the roller derby worked just as fine, but the audience doesn't have any recognition there either.
Yeah.
Like when I saw the original film and the little girl's got a Thor helmet, as a little kid myself, well, I wasn't that little anymore. I think I was about 14.
Mm-hmm.
And then the old guy's like, "Oh, here, kid, you can keep it. I've already got one." The one guy who actually looks like Thor. I'm like, do two people have this helmet? I don't have this helmet. Where do you get this helmet? I want that helmet.
Yeah.
Well, he told her that. I don't think it's true. But to come from my...
She warmed his black heart.
Black heart. But to come from my perspective, in which I didn't know anything about the Thor comics, watching this movie the first time when I was younger, but I knew about Thor the god. So that's kind of where I was approaching it. And I knew he was probably tall and blonde. And
Which
that's
is
where
not
I
true.
got it.
Mythologically speaking, he's a redhead.
Didn't know that. I was like, tall blonde. I could get that. But I think I might have seen a comic or two and saw that.
Yeah, at some point, probably somebody had seen a cover of a comic book. Like, I think he was more associated with the way Marvel portrays
But I'm aware
him.
of the story of Thor. And like, when you think Scandinavian, I just thought blonde. That's just it. Sure. But so... I was approaching it as the god, not as the comic book character. So it still kind of works in that respect.
Yeah, I don't think it was you needed it, but I mean, her whole room was like plastered with them. So even if you didn't know, you figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you can't not know that it's a comic book because I mean, she's also reading a comic book in the car.
Yeah. Did you catch like the side thing, like they're watching TV? Did you catch what they were watching?
Oh my god, I think I did, and I can't remember what
Another
it was.
babysitter movie.
The call's coming from inside the
also
house.
produced by the same person.
Oh yes, Halloween.
It was Halloween.
Oh
correct.
yes,
yes. Because as soon as you said who produced it, because I was looking at the producers, and it is what's her name?
Is it Gail? No, I was thinking Gail and her, but it's
Linda.
Not.
I want to say Linda.
John Carpenter's wife.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually, you just reminded me of something. Keith Coogan is in another babysitter movie called "Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead."
Oh my god!
Oh,
you're right.
Yeah, and you know what?
6 Degrees of Babysitters.
Yeah, and it's funny because I love Keith Coogan. I think that he was fabulous in these late '80s, early '90s movies, and then he just kind of disappeared for a while. I'm glad that he's seeing that people are starting to sort of give him work again.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? He's so in that original. He's just so good at like the unrequited crush on the babysitter. And
well, I have a question for you because I want to go back to the Halloween bit. How do you think Elisabeth Shue would have fared with Michael Myers?
Ooh.
Right up until
After what
she
she's done
fainted
here.
when Brad died.
Yeah.
Oh, she's not good with that news.
No, if she'd come across a dead body,
every
she'd
time
dead.
she faints, she comes up the same way. Oh, what a bad dream!
Yes,
she did the exact same line in
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That's her. That's her movie thing: fainting and thinking it was all a dream.
That's her move.
Yeah, but yeah, I think right up until then she would have done okay. But then as soon as I saw that, I'm like, no.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're
no.
right. She would have been dead meat.
Yeah.
But if you put her up against gangs, she's not doing too bad. But I think she needs to really get past that idea of not stabbing someone. Once she gets there, she'll be fine.
Yeah, because that's true. She established she was a badass,
and then she puts the knife down.
And then she faints at the hospital, and it's like, oh, okay, you just undid all that toughness.
Well, the doctor did tell her that
her ward was dead.
Ward was dead from a knife wound in the foot.
Yes. Yes.
How does that even happen?
Well, there was another stabbing that came in at the same time who did die, and he mistook it for the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, he died.
And really, no, he didn't get stabbed. It was between his toes, and he just has a hole in his shoe and one stitch in his toe.
But to be fair, once you see the knife go in and you don't feel anything, you're like, is this adrenaline or what else is happening here?
Yeah.
He was sure limping pretty good for a kid who didn't get hurt.
Psychosomatic.
But a sore toe can really throw you off.
When you flesh your toe and there's like even just the smallest cut in it, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea how badly how badly it's not damaged. But yeah, I mean, you think about all of the stuff that bends in there when you're walking.
Our balance is so precarious. Those tiny little things on our feet.
All right, any last thoughts about Adventures in Babysitting?
Watch them both.
Yeah.
They're both so much fun. And
they are.
Yeah. And
I feel like it was a missed opportunity by releasing that on the Disney Channel instead of theatrically.
Yeah.
I think it would have done fairly well theatrically, especially on that budget.
Absolutely.
Done cheap. I think both these girls are stars.
They're so great.
Can be stars outside of the Disney Channel.
Yeah, they're so great. Like, I mean, and the transformation she has sort of at the end where they do her over so that she looks like she belongs in a concert.
Yeah.
She's not so stoic.
Yeah.
It works.
I mean, it's very tropey. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if you're organized, you've got your hair pulled back in a ponytail and you're kind of
It is.
low maintenance in that respect, and then as soon as she drops her hair, she's gorgeous again.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a kids' movie, and you have to accept that those tropes are going to show up.
Yeah, it's not that hair out of place thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I want another movie where Gabrielle Miller goes out on a date and it goes well. Like her and her husband have a night out. That's what I want the sequel to be. They go out and they have like the Tina Fey, Steve Carell date night thing. And then the two babysitters have a very quiet evening.
That was the best bit too, where the precarious night racing home to get there before the parents, clean up, and just this mad dash to the couch, looking relaxed.
Yeah. And actually, I did find it funny in the remake at the end where, as soon as she says send out the pictures, I'm like, why are you sending out evidence?
Yes,
and then the mother sees the photo of the dog.
Jigs up.
Yeah.
But hey, Lola retired, so
exactly.
She's like, maybe not. Once is enough.
To admit, looking after kids is hard. They're a lot of energy.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, but she was on a pretty good career path at that point, so she didn't need to do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, that was Adventures in Babysitting from 2016 and the original movie from 1987.
Yeah, so long ago.
I know, but it's a lot of fun. If there are other fun 80s classics you'd like us to do or maybe remake on our own, let us know. You can do that on our social media at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion of the Remake on Facebook and Instagram, and Invasion of the Remake at gmail.com. If you want to email us, you can email us your comments, your corrections, your suggestions, all that fun stuff. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and a short review over on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, and help get more
earballs
on the show, and recommend it to your friends. We're everywhere. Just tell them to search it out on their favorite podcatcher. At this point, I'm not going to list. That's my 2020 thing. I don't need to listen to you because we've got a ton list of them at this point, and you can find a lot of those links on our link tree on our social media. But recommend it to your friends because we're even on
freaking YouTube.
But don't go there because they're not all there, because they like to be nitpicky over there.
I mean, honestly, if you're hiding from us, you can freaking type our name in Google, and a lot of the shows up.
That's right. So
we're fully the first page of Google results.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not going to be able to not find us. If you're not finding us, is you're either actively avoiding us or you haven't told your friend yet. So clearly, if you're listening to us, you found us. So help other people find us as well.
Yes, we're not hiding.
No,
we're really not hiding.
We got a good year here planned. Sam and I we've got most of this month figured out. We have a theme month for April figured out almost entirely.
February, we've got
about half of that figured out in February as well. So we're almost ahead of the game here this year, and with our booking and stuff. But keep suggestions out there of things you want us to cover,
because we still have a few holes.
Yeah, things you want us to do the comparison on, or movies you want us to remake. We're always up for a good fantasy remake as well. We're going to try to mix it up, and this year we're not going to do too much horror until we're going to do a couple in February for Women in Horror Month, and then April's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, April's going to be a lot of fun.
Sam didn't really want to do any more theme months, and I'm like, how about this one? And he's like, oh no. Yeah, let's do it. We didn't really. We did two. Well, I mean, we always have our October horror month.
Yes.
And then we did, again, Women in Horror all month last year. We're going to truncate it a little bit for February because I think that's still a lot of horror. It's a little too soon to the October stuff because it's almost 6 weeks worth of stuff.
Yeah, but we still want to acknowledge the Women in Horror, so we're
we're going to do it a little smaller this year, but we're definitely going to do that in the later half of February, and we've at least got one of them figured out.
Yes,
nice
already, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some lots of cool stuff. We're going to try to hit some of the bigger names this year of things. We're hoping we might cover. Sometimes we go into some weird places and you're like, what the fuck is that? So we'll try to make them a little more recognizable this year.
Yeah, we're still going to do our weird fun stuff that only we know about. But
some of our best episodes have been some of these weirder things that I didn't think anybody would know, and then wound up being some of our best episodes.
Yeah.
So.
That's the whole thing. Like, that's the strange thing. We might think they're weird and unusual, but they aren't actually as weird as we thought they were. So
or
that's
they're weird, but
nice.
a lot of people like them.
I still can't wrap my head around that. Like, our number 2 episodes, I Come in Peace.
Yeah.
Like, wow, a lot of people like this movie, and I didn't think anybody knew about this movie.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I love looking at our top 10 because it's really weird.
Well, we touch the stuff I think a lot of other podcasts aren't thinking about.
Yeah, so I love our audience for that. It's like, why? Okay, so number 1's 101 Dalmatian, and number 2 is I Come in Peace.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll take it.
Right on. All right, well, that's it. We'll catch you next week. I'm Jason.
I'm always Sam.
And I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
I thought you always help people in trouble.
Hey, kid. This is the city. I don't help anybody but myself.
But I was
Get lost!
Wait! I know why you're not acting like yourself. You don't have your special helmet. See, you're wearing the baseball hat. You're supposed to be wearing this. Take mine. Go on, take it. Take it.
You giving this to me?
Oh yeah, you're my hero.
Here, take the car.
Thanks, Thor.
You're welcome. Hey, kid. I got one of these at home.